So we define tokenization as a process. A process is a collection of steps. A process is a collection of steps. So tokenization is a process through which an object or asset is given a digital representation using blockchain technology. Remember, we are tokenizing assets because they are worth tokenizing. Nobody wants to tokenize liabilities per se. So we are focused here on assets. So it's a process where an asset is given digital representation, but that doesn't just end there. Digital representation using blockchain technology. Now, why do we highlight blockchain technology? Because it establishes a standard that cannot be compromised or abused. So blockchain technology is basically just a database system, but it uses timestamps with code so that every transaction that happens is stamped on a decentralized ledger or a transparent ledger, let's put it like that, and is timestamped with the particular time of transaction, and it is recorded in chains, then it is immutable. Nobody can change that once it has been recorded. So this is the standard that enables assets to come on chain. This was not available in Web 1 and Web 2, but we currently have that in Web 3 because the Web 3 is built on blockchain technology. Subsequently in the course, you will interact with more technical teachers who would explain to you more concepts about blockchain technology. But for now, let's leave it there. So the blockchain ensures that the digital twin of a physical asset remains unique, secure, verifiable across global networks. Now, that is the magic of the blockchain, right? And the blockchain is what facilitates tokenization. It's because we have the blockchain that we can tokenize assets. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, Web 1 and Web 2 did not facilitate tokenization. They could issue some sorts of tokens to represent items, but they were really never having a standard that was globally appreciated. They were not having systematic protocols that could ensure that the asset is actually meeting its mark. So in Web 1, here we had a read-only web. A read-only web. Now in the Web 1, guess what? It was dominated by big organizations who could afford the technology, right? Because if you look back in time, you'd see that it was not always the case. Computers were very large. Computers were very large and expensive. So the average person could not afford computers, right? So the big companies used the internet back then, the networks available, to upload content, and it was basically just simple protocols for file transfer available within the network. So people could not really create and upload unless you were a real big corporation, right? Then Web 2, something changed. People were not just reading what corporations had written on the internet or downloading what the internet was offering. They could now upload information to the internet, right? It was an era of interactivity. An era of interactivity. Users became creators, enabling global business and social exchange. However, this required trust. Yeah, you remember, I don't think we have mentioned it so far, but we definitely encounter the trustlessness of the blockchain technology. You don't need to trust to use the blockchain technology, and we'll explain that in the technical architecture forward in the course. So you needed trust in Web 2, and centralized middlemen. They lended their reputation and they controlled private databases and transaction records. So it was kind of centralized interactions with the Web 2. So now we see that the Web 1 was led by big corporations Web 2 was more social and interactive, but there was no system to represent data decentralized. So there were still organizations that had to control most of the data, right? Then we moved to Web 3. Okay, now in Web 3, see what happens. In Web 3, the blockchain comes to the top. It comes to the surface. A tamper-proof digital book used for record keeping that cannot be altered by any single party, ensuring absolute transparency. This is possible because of smart contracts. Smart contracts are just self-executing code that controls information and assets by connecting the network to tamper-proof records. So because these records are available, nobody can change them, and because nobody can change them, they can represent value, right? So that's basically the situation. This evolution removes the need for centralized middlemen, taking transactions to a whole new level of speed and flexibility. So guys, welcome to the decentralized age. Tokenization is the product of the internet's decentralization. Now we have physical assets. We have shares, we have commodities, we have intellectual property, we have arts and collectibles, we have revenue streams being decentralized and being exchanged because of the new internet. Yes, you have come this far and it's wonderful. We're almost done with this introduction, so we have a little above 2 minutes and we'll be done.